respecting the status of the state of the Republic of the Gambia's National Assembly member, not Neti Balde, for God's sake. You cannot expect that to happen. It's not Neti Balde that is important. It's the National Assembly member compared to other National Assembly members of countries of similar sovereignty. You cannot be called a proud citizen if you are not equated with your fellow citizens around you.
But I will also appeal to the authority. Code of conduct, I dress with my necktie, being a Westerner, or I come with my haftan, and at the end of the day, I'll be in a gele-gele with those poto-poto. You know poto-poto? I come to the assembly, what is the use of that dress?
Their impasse have persisted for more than a decade and have left deep wounds yet to be healed, particularly on the fate of previous parliamentarians who find it difficult to be absorbed back in the state services and functions.
What happens to those honorable members that were in parliament and are not coming back into public life anymore? For a start, they find it difficult to get back into the civil service because of their status as National Assembly members before they left the National Assembly itself. But that doesn't mean that they are not worthy of service. That doesn't mean that they don't have the capacity to serve this country. It doesn't mean that we have to dispose everybody else that has been a politician because he has been a politician. Then it looks like then being a politician is a curse, not a blessing. And it should be a blessing.
Transparency is very important, and so is leading by example. And I want to commend the authority particularly for taking an interest in the welfare of National Assembly members, especially in the areas of proper remuneration for National Assembly members.
Deputies also reviewed and adopted reports on the second Pan-African Parliament Conference of Speakers and Clerks of Africa held in Midrand, South Africa, and All-African Conference on the MDGs held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, respectively in August and May this year.
The establishment of the Pan-African Parliaments is informed by a vision to provide a common platform for African peoples and their grassroots organizations to be more involved in discussions and decision-making on the problems and challenges facing the continent.
The conference was organized by UN, of course, through the Interparliamentary Union, the Commonwealth Foundation, and the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Our relations with the executive, it has something to do with our relations with individual people, particularly our electorates, and even in the international arena, because we represent the Gambia outside. So the authority meetings that took place had a presentation which was made by the member for Tuman. And you have seen how delicate the position of the authority can be when it talks on your behalf for your welfare.
As the debates arose with conclusions of improving their plight as the second arm of government, legislators are concerned with their welfare. Babukar Kamara, GRTS.
The International Monetary Fund's Banjul office, in partnership with the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Thursday held a seminar for state actors and private sector operatives to discuss the country's new IMF program. Samuel reports, aside from the appraisal of the program's progress, the information sharing platform also generated interactive discussion on the country's tax systems, particularly the value-added tax, which is expected to be introduced soon.
Thought-sharing meeting occasioned by the IMF Banjul office in conjunction with the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry brought together state actors and a cross-section of the private sector to deliberate on the Gambia's new IMF program and its impact on business and the economy. The GCCI IMF Outreach Plan will conduct the first review of the country's IMF new program centered on reducing borrowing requirements of government and monitor the progress of tax and administration policy.
This seminar was occasioned by requests from the IMF country office here. Dr. Mashet Chirongo 2 days ago sent us an invitation and wanted to have an interaction because we all know that in 2013 there would be the VAT and there is an IMF mission in town because they are providing technical advice to government and supporting government efforts in its fiscal and monetary policy.
We are looking at the government's progress. Have they introduced the reforms that they committed to introducing? Have they met their targets, numerical targets, for things like their budget balance or their international reserve? So we are here to look at numbers and then also discuss policy and policy reforms.
3-year credit arrangement for the Gambia, courtesy of the International Monetary Body, has come at a time when government is undergoing gradual fiscal adjustments in trying to reduce the amount of borrowing and ease pressure on domestic rates.
The Gambia has one of the worst ratings worldwide in terms of sort of the ease of even complying with the tax system.
The government has also reviewed the position of in terms of taxation and has realized that there are some constraints. Some of these constraints, of course, are linked to the ease of doing business in the Gambia, for instance.
After addressing the gathering on the mission's objective and the position of government by the IMF Chief of Mission and the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, the floor was later opened for dialogue, questions and answers from members of the private sector. Among key issues that emanated from their concerns were matters on high tax rates in the country. Speakers from all walks of life raised concerns over personal income tax, incentives for contractors, reduction of corporate tax, and the issue of payroll taxes as levied on non-Gambians hired by private investors. The Gambia, they say, remains one among hundreds of countries yet to implement the value-added tax, though tax administrators are hopeful that its introduction may not have any negative effect, as its offshoot will be in no way a radical departure.
Even that personal income tax that people are talking about, the sales tax. For sales tax, you sell and then you collect the tax. So if you don't sell, you don't collect the tax. And we are still having problems where people sell, we can establish this from their turnover businesses, and they are not remitting this money to GRA.
The value-added tax should be a big improvement for the Gambian tax system. This is a tax that more than 100 countries around the world already have. So the Gambia is just going to be the next in a list that already has more than 100 countries. The important thing to stress is that this is not really a new tax. It is going to replace the current sales tax that already exists and it's charged on goods and services in the Gambia.
The interactive session on value-added tax and further ideas for tax reforms eventually wrapped up after experts and tax administrators took time to clarify all concerns raised by the business community, especially at a time when government is intensifying efforts on fiscal adjustments to reduce borrowing and ease pressure on domestic rates. Samuel Ba, GRTS.
The University of the Gambia's Law Faculty is playing host to a two-day symposium organized by the Minister of Justice in partnership with the World Intellectual Property Organization. The forum, as part of Justice reports, is exposing the participants to issues pertinent to intellectual property rights.
The Ministry of Justice, in partnership with the World Intellectual Property Organization and the University of the Gambia, convened a two-day symposium on intellectual property education, training and research. The forum is designed to arm participants with the requisite knowledge on the importance of the model and its impact on the country's economic advancement.
The willingness to engage in efforts geared towards invention and innovation and development cannot go on without an efficient intellectual property protection system. In other words, investment in research and the guarantee of the economic benefits that will accrue from research through an efficient intellectual property system cannot be guaranteed without a very good foundation in terms of the intellectual property system in a country.
It is mandatory on WIPO to promote establishment of intellectual property system in African regional intellectual property organization member states. Therefore, the symposium officials believe will avail them the platform to discuss issues aligned with the theme.
The objective of the symposium is to discuss the importance of intellectual property and to introduce intellectual property at the University of the Gambia. As you all know, as well said by the Registrar General, intellectual property is a branch of law that protects and provides